you mentioned unicorn. Yeah, I don't think there's too many guys that are going to, make that conversion. So is Jalen Hurts going to go the route of Josh Allen? I don't know. And even if he does, he doesn't have that kind of arm. That's what worries me, too. He doesn't have that real, bazooka on his right shoulder.
Appreciate you streaming on in to Birds 365 with John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are joined by a colleague, a guy we haven't been able to punch up in a couple of months. He's so busy covering the Bills. We waited until after the season was over and done with so we can talk Bills and make him walk down memory lane with the Eagles with us. And all things NFL as well. From Sports Illustrated, Nick Fierro joins us here on Birds 365. Nick, you're looking good, buddy. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Hi, guys. Good to be back on the show.
Good to see you, Nick. I assume you ran back from India in a 4-4.
Yeah.
Everybody's running 4-4s. How much value do you take out of the underwear Olympics out there and what it means to actual talent evaluation?
Yeah, I believe that the great workouts at the combine only really matter if it's backed up or if it follows, great film from their playing. When a guy, if there are questions about a guy's athleticism, but he's done everything else, and then he goes out and runs a good 40, well, that's a good deal. But the guys that don't have it on the tape to begin with, I don't know. How many times have we seen the guys that have come out and put up the real big numbers, the real low numbers on the 40? They don't really have much of a career. No, a lot of them don't. But, if you have a guy that there are certain guys that can really help themselves, but they've had a pretty good college career, I think, to begin with.
Nick, since the Bills had the record that they did this year, the Eagles don't have to worry about them stealing someone drafting in front of them in a given round. But the later pick in the first round could affect the Eagles' second round and so on and so forth through the draft. What are the Bills looking to add with their first couple of picks? If a legitimate player, value player is on the board at that time at a position they have a need, where are the Bills looking to go?
Yeah, I think they can go a lot of ways. And because even though there's probably not going to be a lot of openings on that team, when you have a roster like that, they are, on the verge of possibly losing a lot of unrestricted free agents. So they have some business to do. So, they drafted, like, for example, defensive line, edge rushers. Last year, they used their first 2 picks in the draft on edge rushers. They could go that direction again here with their first pick. When you think about it, the quality of defensive ends in this year's draft, pretty high. I could see them actually trading down. But they could also go cornerback. Cornerback's going to be a position in need for them because they could be losing one of their starters, Levi Wallace. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent. And Tre'Davious White blew out his knee last year in the Thanksgiving game, so that could be a 1-year recovery or if not more. And so, they're going to need cornerbacks either way, I think. And so that just kind of adds to that. And, they're still not done, I think, tinkering with the offensive line. They could go that way too. There's a lot of wide receivers out there. They stand to lose Emmanuel Sanders, who could retire. His contract is up. Isaiah McKenzie is going to be his contract is up. So they could be losing some wide receivers there too. And they, I look at Jahan Dotson. If they're sitting there, maybe they trade down. Maybe he's not worth drafting at 25. But I really, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly from listening to Brandon Beane at the Combine, where he's talking about there's a lot of depth in this draft in the middle rounds, and not necessarily maybe guys that are, upper echelon top guys. I'm thinking maybe he tries to trade down, and unless everybody else is trying to do the same thing, he might be successful doing that this year.
Nick, there's a lot I want to get into you about the Bills' sort of imprint on the NFC East now in New York. I want to talk about the unicorn that is Josh Allen with his accuracy, because people talk about Jalen Hurts improving his accuracy. But before I get to that, I want to start, I want to rewind, because I want to talk about those final 13 seconds because you did a really good piece at SI.com/NFL/Bills. I got to get used to that because I usually say Eagles, but Sean McDermott and accountability. Look, it was all there for the Buffalo Bills. 13 seconds. What the heck happens at the end of the game? And you said there's some whispers and, players saying, yeah, you preach accountability. What the heck? Why is there no accountability at the end of that football game?
Yeah, good question. And that's when I think it's going to be a problem for McDermott unless he gets that team, into a meeting room and turns on the video and says, here, anyone have any questions here? This is my thinking here. This is why we kicked off through the end zone. This is why we played soft defense with 13 seconds to go and allowed the team to go 44 yards in 2 plays. When you get, you give Hall of Fame receivers or tight ends or whatever, free releases off the line. And why we're rushing 4 at the quarterback. Why? I mean, there were 13 seconds to go. You don't need to rush anybody, really. I mean, he's got to get the ball out of his hands pretty quickly at that point. There were a lot of faulty decisions there, miscommunication, dysfunction, however you want to say it. Players were kind of confused. And, Sean McDermott saying to us, now telling us, accountability, it all starts with me. That's great. That's Andy Reid stuff. That's, football 101. Nobody really cares about what he says to the media, but the players care about, he sent them home the next day. They were locker cleanout day, okay, like it never happened. And you have to be able to put this behind you, and you have to address that. With the players that are returning for the 2022 season, I think he has to do that. Because there was too many things that went wrong, and it was not the players. I think they were put in position to lose that game. And really, it was just, I'll tell you the truth, it was the whole game. It wasn't just the final 13 seconds. This was the number 1 ranked defense in the NFL. They gave up 42 points. They never really made an adjustment throughout the game against the Chiefs. They played soft the whole time, too soft. And, they couldn't mix things up. Look, you could play cover 3, you could play quarters, but you could still jam guys doing that. You might not be able to rush 4 guys doing that, but I'm just talking about before the final 13 seconds. You can do things that, that can prevent receivers from getting off the line or, whatever. But you can't just give them free releases the whole game. And that's what they did. And then they couldn't get them down either. That was a problem. That was the problem last year, too, when they lost in the playoffs to Kansas City. So, but they finally, even despite all that, they clear that hurdle. They score with 13 seconds to go on an unbelievable drive play. Josh Allen, I think you said unicorn. We'll get to him, I'm sure, in a minute. And they can't hold that. With 13 seconds to go, there had to be about 800 things that go wrong for them to lose that game, and all 800 things went wrong.
All right, Nick, I want to get past, as you said, everything leading up to the final 13 seconds and the final 13 seconds and go to what transpired afterwards, which is kind of what decided the game, and that's overtime.
Yeah.
Because it became a major topic. Oh, it's so unfair that Josh Allen didn't get a chance after the showcase he put on. He's got to get his hands on the ball. No! Buffalo, keep him out of the friggin' end zone. Yeah. Real simple. Get a stop. You don't even have to get them off the field. They can kick a field goal, but then, you put it back in Josh the Unicorn Allen's hands. He's going to go get a touchdown. That has been completely overseen because of the whole overtime controversy. The Bills couldn't stop him from going down the field. All right, maybe your pride check. You give up a field goal in 13 seconds. How about you come out for overtime with a little pride and get a stop and at least not let him into the end zone? I want the feel of Bills Nation. I'm sure guys respond to you on social media and or comments after your articles and the like. Are the Bills fans more ticked off because of 13 seconds? And I would get that if that's the case. I would be more upset because, by the way, the next week, same exact thing, Cincinnati Bengals lose the coin flip. Guess what? They got to stop on the Kansas City Chiefs. They got the ball and they ended up in the Super Bowl. Are the Bills taking the correct prerequisite amount of grief for allowing Kansas City to score that touchdown in overtime?
Oh, you have a great point there. Well, first of all, I've never been in favor of this NFL overtime rule. I've always believed in both teams having a possession, but regardless. But
Nick, I love you. That's
that
crap.
said,
That's
that's no excuse. I mean, But then again, if you look at it, those guys, by the time that overtime started, you're talking about a team that was dazed and confused. They got hit with an overhead. they got hit with and they didn't know what was going on. And you knew the Kansas City Chiefs were going to win that game. They were going to win that game, even if the Bills had gotten the ball first. They were going to lose that game. It didn't matter. Once that got to overtime, I felt that was over, and they didn't know what hit them. They were literally dazed. That was a horrible. One of the worst things I've ever seen. Those last 13.
Yeah. I mean, momentum is a real thing because, people bring up individual situations. People thought the game was over in the AFC Championship game. Kansas City got the ball. They won the coin toss. Everybody's up in arms again. And Cincinnati was able to stop them and go to the other direction. They win the football game. So you're right. I mean, I think that 13 seconds plays a big part of it because, look, you just snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and that has a mental effect on the players, and they're kind of reeling. But I do want to talk about Josh Allen for a couple of reasons, Nick. One, you were obviously here with Carson Wentz, and those two are similar from a size perspective. They're both, giant, 6'5", 240. They both play the game sort of recklessly, for a lack of better term. They're just very physical. They're willing to take punishment. And you saw what happened to Carson. I mean, was just never the same physically. Any concern around the Bills that the way Josh Allen plays, it's going to be a short shelf life?
Sure. Every time we talk to Brandon Beane, he talks about it. He doesn't come out and say, I'm concerned that, my quarterback might only have a couple more years left in the league, but he's always talking about, he cringes every time he takes off. They want him to get down more. They would prefer that he didn't run as much as he did. But then on the other hand, that's kind of what makes him so great. And so they want to have to balance that out. And that's what they're in the process of doing right now is, getting a really good backup quarterback lined up. They had one last year in Trubisky. Fortunately for them, they didn't need him last year, but they feel like they're not going to be able to get him back this year.
No, he's got to be a starter, Nick.
Yeah.
He's getting a big deal somewhere.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. And so, but anyway, that is sure. He could end up. Let's see what happens because, look, he's going to get injured at some point, right? Every quarterback gets. Even Brady, all those games he played, he missed a whole season one year.
Yeah,
and it's going to happen. And if he doesn't if he bounces back the same way that Carson Wentz does, well, then we're looking at, what do you got? It might never be the same for him. And, I don't see Josh Allen ever being like a pocket quarterback, a guy that can really be great just doing that, like a Brady. Or a Burrow. Burrow taking all those hits, but he stays in the pocket. I don't see that. I see Josh Allen getting out and trying to do that. And if he can't do that, what kind of quarterback is he going to be? But I will say this: he's got faster twitch than Carson Wentz. I think.
Oh yeah, much. Yeah. I just size-wise, they're very similar.
Yeah, but the arm strength too is there. He can throw the ball. He's almost about like Vic. I would say Michael Vick is the most impressive athlete I've seen at the quarterback position, just athlete. But then, Josh Allen, he might be number 2.
He's got a hell of an arm. We both agree on that. All right. Let me ask you about, you talked about the wide receivers earlier. I've seen in the last day or two, Cole Beasley has been given permission to negotiate a trade with another team, given his agent permission to do so. He's been one of the better slot receivers in the National Football League for the last 2-3 years. Know that he had a COVID issue this year, kind of outspoken about the whole thing, but I think that's much lesser a fact going into 2023 in the National Football League. Why are the Bills ready, willing, and able to move off Cole Beasley if they've got other wide receiver questions they got to answer this offseason?
Yeah, it just comes down to, I guess, money, and he's going to be he's going to incur a big hit for them this year. And the way Bean has structured a lot of the contracts for the veterans is that that they don't have any guaranteed money for 2022, so it gives them the kind of flexibility to either renegotiate or trade or release these players. And Beasley had he matched his career high this year in receptions with 82, but he also matched his career low with 8.5 yards per reception. And he's not getting any younger. He's going to be 33. And maybe they feel like they are going to re-sign Isaiah McKenzie, or they're going to draft somebody like a Jahan Dotson or whoever, and get somebody more of a cost control contract. So this was not really a surprise to anybody who covers the team. A lot of us were talking about that we kind of expected something to happen with Beasley. And like you said, nothing to do with COVID, just because going into this year, I don't think that's going to be an issue anyway.
Are you as in awe of Stephon Diggs' route running now that you get to see it every week as I am, Nick? That guy is unbelievable. And does his ability to move inside and outside affect? I mean, great slot receiver, but he can play all over the field.
Oh yeah. I mean, and that's the route running is the biggest thing. You don't have to be the fastest guy, or the quickest guy, but if you run routes precisely, if you understand defenses, you're going to get open, and he does that, and he provides such a it's no coincidence that Josh Allen's career really took off.
Yeah.
Once they got a real accomplished guy in there. Now, you could argue that, they traded away their first round pick to Minnesota, and
turned out to be Jefferson.
They drafted Jefferson, but I think this worked out well for both teams, and I think they needed a guy like Diggs maybe even more than they needed Jefferson. And who knew what Jefferson was going to be at that point? So they got what they needed, and they're going to have to work something out with him too, because he's got a big cap hit this year. I think they'd like to kind of lessen that, and they probably need to work to redo his contract. Not give him less, but, maybe extend him.
Nick, should Eagle fans be worried because the New York Giants spirited out of Buffalo the two number twos on the Bills staff, number two in Power Broker, and shown as the new Giant general manager, and number two on the coaching staff table behind Shawnee Mack up there? Did the Giants upgrade their main builders in New York with ex-Buffalo guys? How good are these two guys shuffling off from Buffalo, coming down to New York to take on Eagles twice a year?
I think they probably did upgrade, but it's funny. I heard some things. So not everybody is on board in the NFL. I was just hearing some things at the combine, about Dable, because Dable's had kind of a spotted record. He's been great when he's had great talent around him, like Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. Not so great when he hasn't been. He's been around for a long time, and it wasn't like he's had a great track record the whole time. So, but Joe Shane, I mean, they really like him. That they think that he was going to be a GM somewhere, and obviously wasn't going to be with the Bills because he's blocked. So that's what happens, and I think they're going to try to maybe use the Buffalo model. But I think the Bills kind of feel, they lost some coaches to the Giants too. They lost their offensive line coach, but and they lost their offensive coordinator, obviously, but I think that they did well with their replacements. Ken Dorsey, a lot of people think he was kind of the brains behind the whole thing anyway with Josh Allen, and now he's the offensive coordinator, and Allen was the guy who really wanted him in there. And I think they made a really good hire for their offensive line coach in bringing back Aaron Cromer, who was their offensive line coach before, or a couple of years before McDermott took over. We're not really sure. Nobody's really saying what happened with the special teams coordinator Farwell. He's with Doug now in Jacksonville. Was he pushed out the door? Did he quit? I probably pushed out the door because they had that announcement of his replacement within 1 hour of the news of him leaving. So I think that those things went hand in hand. But and that probably had to do with the kickoff and miscommunication there. But again, they're not saying, and I don't care that they don't tell us, but he's got to address this with the player. He's kind of treating this like it never happened. But I think the Bills feel better about their staff maybe going into this year than they did last year.
All right, I want to tie this in. A lot of people, Nick, have put 2 and 2 together and think the Giants might bring in Mitchell Trubisky to at least compete with Daniel Jones and let the winner come out through legitimate competition because Dable's there and Schoen is there. I want to talk about it, though, as far as accuracy, because, Mitchell Trubisky managed to rehabilitate his reputation in Buffalo. Didn't play, though. I mean, all we don't know what went on behind the scenes. We do know Josh Allen arrived as the 7th overall pick, wasn't very accurate. And you've been around this league a long time, Nick. Coaches always say, if you're not accurate, you're probably not going to get accurate at the quarterback position. Josh Allen has managed to turn that on its head. That's big because we're here in Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts. That's the knock on Jalen Hurts. He's just not accurate enough.
Yeah.
People say if you're not accurate, you can't get accurate. Well, Josh Allen got accurate. How did he do it?
Yeah, they made some changes to some little tweaks to his mechanics. And, of course, he has that personal quarterback that he works with, Palmer. I can't remember his first name. It's Carson Palmer's brother.
Jordan, yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Palmer. And he's really helped him a lot. But Dable talked about some of the things that they did, like change his arm slot a little bit, maybe change his footwork a little bit. But, it's the same thing that happened with Carson Wentz, in between his first and second seasons. They did some things, and I don't know how much more accurate he got. Actually, he probably completed less. I don't know if you can go by the completion percentage. And when you look at Josh Allen's completion percentage, it's certainly not the greatest in the league, but he is a lot more accurate now. And he will miss. I mean, he's not. I wouldn't call him, a top 5 quarterback in terms of accuracy. He'll miss. He'll make a lot of unforced errors, but his arm strength is so great that his arm talent, he'll just compensate for a couple of bad throws with just something unbelievable where he can't, nobody else can even get the play off, and then he'll put it on a dime 50 yards down the field. So, but you mentioned unicorn. Yeah, I don't think there's too many guys that are gonna, make that conversion. So is Jalen Hurts gonna go the route of Josh Allen? I don't know. And even if he does, he doesn't have that kind of arm. That's what worries me too. He doesn't have that real, bazooka on his right shoulder.
Yeah, but his arm strength is strong enough. John and I talked about that extensively before you came on here today. Let's lend Howie Roseman and your guy up there being in Buffalo a helping hand. And I feel really bad doing this because I'm kind of undercutting a Philly guy and a Temple guy, no less, because that's my daughter's alma mater. How happy are the Bills with Deion Dawkins as their left tackle? And if it's not 100%, Johnny Mack favorite, Andre Dillard, could be available this offseason, even though he was a first-round pick here. Mr. Mailata is already cashed in and is locked in at the left tackle position for the Eagles for years to come. How much interest could Buffalo have in acquiring an offensive lineman if the Eagles are willing to move some of their depth from there?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I think they're pretty happy with Deion Dawkins. I think he had a pretty good year. He was really he might have been in the worst shape of anyone in getting COVID. He was hospitalized. He thought he was going to die at one point. This was in the preseason. He came out of it. He was kind of weak to begin with. It took him a while to get into it, but I think they feel like he's going to be their guy. But he even mentioned that he might not be there because, in addition to drafting 2 defensive linemen last year, they drafted 2 tackles, the offensive tackles last year. And, one of them was starting, and Spencer Brown. And the other one, Tommy Doyle, came in as an extra lineman a lot in a heavy package. He, was kind of like a tight end, but they really like Doyle. So, maybe it comes down to the fact that Doyle might be in the future too. But them trading, I don't see them making a trade for another lineman because of their situation. And with Dillard, I like Dillard. We talked, John, I've talked to this. I think he could play. And probably, even if the Bills think he can play, I don't know that it's worth them, moving any kind of draft capital or whatever to trade for him.
Yeah, he played. He got a little opportunity when Lane Johnson had his issues. Jordan Mailata got banged up. Played pretty well. I think the Eagles will be able to get a day 3 pick for him. We'll see how that shakes out. But last one for me, Nick, and I want to encourage everybody to read Nick Fierro, late of the Allentown Morning Call, but now doing his thing for SI.com/NFL/Bills. So you can read Nick there. You've been around this Eagles team. We'll get you out here on an Eagles note. You saw him from afar last season, but pretty solid first season for Nick Sirianni. What did you think of this team and their ability to get over the hump in the first round of the playoffs?
Yeah, I really thought they did better. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs right up until the end, and then, but things kind of shook out for them. And even their defense, as bad as they played at times, statistically it came out okay. They came out probably in the upper half with things. They couldn't stop Tampa Bay, and I'm still, I think we were talking about this going in, like they should have taken, and I was mentioning this before the game, a week before the game. If you win the coin toss, take
the ball. Jody loves that. Yeah,
you don't want to get behind a team like Tampa. Yeah. Maybe get up because you have such a good running game. Maybe try to do something that way. They didn't do that. He played the analytics game a little too much, but look, I mean, it worked, and I think he's got the guys playing behind him. They play for him. That's really what counts now. They have to get some, they need a lot of players on defense, don't they? I mean,
yeah, they do.
If they get, I'd like to see what they can do. If they could get an extra pass rusher, or we're talking plural, pass rushers, linebackers, safeties. They might be losing both their safeties, right? And if they could do that, and maybe add a receiver too. They got a great year from the rookie, but they probably need a little bit more. I'd like to see that. And then, of course, I'd like to see Jalen Hurts. Everybody wants to see Jalen Hurts do well. I do. I really like him. We talked about this before. He's one of the few quarterbacks that came into the league where, he's got the intangibles. You just don't know if he has the other stuff. Yeah. It's usually the other way around with guys. Yeah, I think he can do that. I think he will become a good quarterback, but you never know. Their commitment to him is not, they're fully behind Jalen Hurts until they're not behind him. until all of a sudden Deshaun Watson becomes available and all of a sudden, the criminal cases are thrown out the window, and then it doesn't matter what happens in the civil. They're going after him or whatever. But that's the way that goes. But did you see him shooting hoops at the combine?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
he had that. I mean, he was making a ton of them there. That's tough to do, those little things.
The little nerf hoop, yeah. Nick's spending too much time with that because he's really, really good at it.
No, we haven't used the word defer in almost 6 weeks on the show here. You had to bring that up and rub salt in the wounds. I'm a Sirianni guy, but he still ticks me off the fact that he just automatically says, yeah, we defer. But we'll defer on this final question, Nick Fierro, because I remember last time we had you on, you said, oh, come on, but I got to be in the car. I got a tea time. I'm getting out there to the golf course. And your FaceTime held up well on the show that day. But when was the last time you swung the golf club with any anger at a little white ball?
It was like early last month. We had like a couple of days that were, like 50 degrees, and we were able to sneak out. Really? But it's been a while. Only maybe twice in January, and maybe a few times in December. But it's been a long time for me. And probably not going to get out there this week. I mean, today it's really nice, but the 40-degree wind or 40-mile-an-hour wind.
Whoa, yeah.
So I'm not going out. I don't even think I want to go to the driving range in that. We'll see.
Well, it depends what the you can get 40 yards on that drive if the wind's going the right way.
If the wind is blowing in the right direction, you want to get out and go, I hit it 300 and change today. Nikki, great stuff. Appreciate you catching up with us. Thank you very much. We'll be tapping into you down the road again. When you do get out there, hit them long and strong.
Sure, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Nick.
Nick Fierro, covering the Bills these days for Sports Illustrated forever. Covered the Eagles for the Allentown Morning Call. All right, Johnny Mac, Jody Mac. Time is nigh. We're running out here. We'll come back and put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.